So good morning, everyone. Welcome to this WIOA Services Matrix Title I-B webinar. Today, we're going to be discussing youth program elements. So thank you for joining us on this Friday morning. We appreciate it. A couple of housekeeping things before we get started. We are on the Zoom webinar platform as opposed to Zoom meetings. So you'll notice some different capabilities, but we do encourage your participation in the chat and the Q&A. Let me go ahead and make sure that you can all participate in the chat because sometimes it likes to tell me that you can. I have to tweak the settings. So there we go. So feel free to participate in the chat or the Q&A. We do save those. So any questions you put in there or anything, Mark and his team are going to use those in the FAQ. We do have closed captioning on today for accessibility reasons, and we will put the slide deck from today in the chat here momentarily, as well as today's webinar is being recorded, and we will have that sent out typically within 48 business hours to you all via email, and it will also be sent out. The website will be sent out where you can find the recording and the slide deck from today. We usually post it on our Illinois Workforce Academy website and Illinois WorkNet. And then I've also just been putting a plug in to all of you. If you have not registered for the Illinois Workforce Summit yet, and you would like to do so, we are closing registration on April 30th. So you have a couple more weeks to get your registration in. We do have multiple hotel room blocks that are still open if you need to book a hotel. And if you have any questions, you can always reach out to me about the Workforce Summit. I will put the link to that in the chat here momentarily. I see a lot of people are saying good morning, so thank you. I should have introduced myself as well. My name is Kirsten Bayer, and I'm the Assistant Director of Communications here at ICSPS. You can go to the next slide there, Paula. And we're going to start off with just some beginning polls that we do every workforce webinar, just so we kind of know where everyone's local area is so we can make sure we're hitting all of you across the whole state. And then also which partner you represent. So we'll do that one here in a second. Mark, we have some people asking for the PowerPoint in the chat. Could you go ahead and put that in there?
Yeah, I'm trying to, and for some reason I can open it, but it's telling me it's a invalid file name, so it's not letting me. So bear with us. We'll get this in there. One of us will figure out why we're not getting able to upload it right now, and we'll get it to everybody.
Yeah. Okay. Looks like 75% of you roughly have participated. So I'm going to go ahead and end that and share the results. Looks like we have a good span across the state with a lot of people from the Chicago area and then a mixture across the rest of the state. So that's good. And then we will do, if you want to go to the next slide, Paula. What is your role in the WIOA system? If you could go ahead and answer that. Give everyone about a minute for that. We do have a poll up right now if you're just joining us of what is your role in the WIOA system? If you could go ahead and answer that. All right. I'm going to go ahead and end that and share the results. Looks like we have quite a few career planners, performance managers, directors, and system administrators and other WIOA partners. So thank you for taking those polls. It just helps us with analytics for reporting on who's joining these webinars and just making sure we're hitting the whole state. And I believe that's all the housekeeping items I have. I'm going to hand it off to Mark to get us started.
Yeah, thanks, Kirsten. Thank you all again for joining us. This is our third in a series of 4 webinars around the new services matrix updates. If you're here from LWIA 7, the Career Connect folks, please continue to join us, but I think you should have received additional information yesterday in a webinar. You can certainly hang around and listen to our version focused on the Illinois Workforce Development System, but don't want to keep you if you didn't realize that there was a difference between the two sessions. Some of what we're going to present today is a little bit of repeat at the beginning from our first couple sessions because we know that some of you focus only on the youth population, and so you may not have joined yesterday or Tuesday's session on the adult and dislocated workers. So apologize for those that were here on Tuesday and seeing some of the same information again, but it'll be very brief in that regard. All right, somebody's saying they're having a hard time here. Let me see if I can turn my microphone up. Is this better, Tammy? Is anyone else having issues? Maybe it's Tammy's audio that anyone else, maybe just a couple of you put it in the chat. Okay.
No, Mark, I
So
can hear you
yeah,
fine.
maybe something with your computer, Tammy. I'm on a headset today because last time when I presented, there was audio issues with my laptop, and so I'm using a headset. So maybe something's going wrong with yours now. All right. So we'll go ahead and get started today. We have Laura, Dom, and Paula Berry with us again today. They're going to be presenting the majority of the actual information regarding the changes. Appreciate them joining us again today. But today's session is focused only on the youth elements, all 14 of those. Specifically, we're going to be highlighting the areas that changed, although we will inform you of some of the things that didn't change to kind of put the full package together for all of you and not leave holes open. Thanks, Joel. So three of the highlights today will be around pre-enrollment requirements, youth career planning, and as we heard on Tuesday, group settings and job clubs and the difference those are um, as far as whether those are enrolling or not. We'll go over all the 14 elements. We've got some polls for you today. Again, hopefully that keeps all of you engaged. It gives us a sense of where you're at with your understanding of this information. So it's really nice that you participate in those, and we appreciate the feedback. Throughout this session, if you have any questions, please place them either in the chat pod or the Q&A. You see both of those down at the bottom. We'll be answering those as we can during this session, either in the chat, in the Q&A, or verbally. We also will be capturing questions and our responses for next week's final session on Tuesday, where we'll cover the supportive services and follow up, but we also will finish with an open Q&A session. We'll cover some of those questions that we maybe didn't cover or feel like we need to repeat again. And then we'll let you get some of your questions presented to us, and we'll respond to them. We'll talk later at the end of today's session how you can submit those questions if you come across something. We'll also talk about we'll be sharing the services matrix. So look in your inbox in the Monday morning for this revised service matrix. And also you'll see changes in the system come Monday morning. All right, so just a little background of the services matrix. We've all seen this before. It hasn't changed as far as the layout from 2023. All of the tabs look the same. So hopefully if you've been using this on a regular basis, and the majority of you indicated you had been when we asked that question on last Friday. So we won't go through this anymore, but it does cover all the basic areas of our services available to participants. And again, today we'll be focusing on that youth tab. Some of the information on this is critical to remember. One is the youth pre-enrollment activities. There are 3 required activities that you must conduct before you can enroll a participant. These do not trigger or extend participation. They must be done before you do that. And you'll see that in that youth tab. We clarify in the tab what are enrolling services, which ones do trigger participation, and which ones extend the 90-day exit window. So please look at that, what we've done on that matrix, and Paula's going to do a little demo when I turn it over to her in a few slides. You'll see a lot of cross out and highlights that will get you to the information that is actually changed in those various tabs. Um, so without spending too much time on this, I don't think this has changed from previously. We're just again covering all of the new information for the youth program. Third item here are talking about same day services. We've talked about this in the past, where the majority of services we provide to our participants, whether it be adult dislocated worker or the youth, are same day services. They're occurring and they're finishing in the same time frame, whether it be in a few minutes, an hour or two, or that day. Training being the one major exception to that usually extends over multiple days, multiple weeks, multiple months. But the majority of your services are going to be same day services, and that's identified in the matrix, so you can clearly note that and you can track it that way and report it in the system. And again, we want to make sure you understand what are non-enrollment activities. That's how we've been clarifying that to all of you, and internally is a service is enrolling in most cases, except for those that come before enrollment. So sorry about if that confused you. But services are those that do extend participation. Activities are those things that do not in general. So always look for those couple differences in the wording. Um, some common language you want to understand. What's the matrix? Again, I mentioned there's performance measures in there. There are same-day services identified. The performance measures, we want to make sure you understand if you're giving a service or reporting a service in the system, does it affect the performance outcomes of your local area and the state as a whole? So we want to make sure and we identify all of the 5 measures that we're familiar with and indicate which ones that service might affect. We want to make sure we're capturing these accurately and timely so that when we do our quarterly and annual reporting, we have all of your information in the system to ensure that accuracy and timeliness. Paula does a great job of reaching out to you a couple times a year to say, hey, just a reminder, we're coming up on our midway or end of year reporting. Please make sure you've identified and reported all of the services, all of the case notes, anything that needs to go in the system. We want to make sure you're doing that again in accordance with policy, which is within 10 days of your notification that has occurred or that you've given it. We also identify for the youth, especially the work experience percentage. We want to make sure you're serving your youth appropriately and ensuring that the percentage of youth that should be getting work experience are getting that. Uh, we're starting to see that increase in some areas, which is good. And if we get reauthorization, I think they're focusing even more on that. So we'll keep an eye on that as we continue on reviewing and tracking any reauthorization. Um, some other language, the definitions, these are kind of related to some of the columns. You'll see some of this referenced in there, but we want to make sure that you understand the definition of each service so that you are capturing, again, accurately the service, not just grabbing one you think is appropriate, but one that you know is appropriate because you're understanding how each of those 14 youth elements are defined. If there are documentation sources that are needed, we're identifying that in the matrix as well so that you can get that from the participant and you can upload that as necessary into your system. I've mentioned this a couple times already, but we want to make sure we're reporting timely. So once an activity or a service occurs, please get that into your system within 10 days um, so that we can continue to review, monitor, and then when we report, we can do that accurately. The system itself, when we talk MIS, you see that term there. We use that as a general term because we use two systems right now with the Illinois development system for most of us, and then the Career Connect system for LWIA 7. But we're also using Illinois WorkNet for some specific programs, and doing all of our tracking of those participants in Illinois WorkNet. And as most of you have heard, if not all of you, we are transitioning to a new IWDS 2.0. Hopefully, we'll have that done by the end of the year, if not sooner, and that will be on the Illinois WorkNet platform. So we're all going to become familiar with what we're already doing on Illinois WorkNet. It's going to be a much more user-friendly system, taking a lot of input from local areas. Local staff are joining us in our discovery and development session. So looking forward to having a system that meets all of your needs. And then finally, make sure that we're reporting prompt, complete, thorough case management. We just want to make sure we're keeping the integrity of our program so that if DOL, the agency that oversees our program at the federal level, ever does an audit, ever does a monitoring visit, and they pick one of your LWIAs, especially, you've all probably gone through this if you've been around very long. They pick a state, and then they go within the state and pick a few local areas to monitor. We want to make sure that we're giving them good information, and it doesn't lead to any other issues. At this time, I want to turn it over to Paula. She's going to do a little live demo of showing you again the youth tab, and then her and Laura are going to go through all of those youth elements. Thank you.
Good morning. Yes, I just want to start off today with showing a real life version of what we're doing here with this matrix. So this is the document. This is the Excel format. And so you'll get it in a PDF in this Excel. And everything Mark just ran down there, all the rules, that's where you find it. These are the columns. So I know most of you are familiar with this, but some of you are not. So we have the label. So this label is going to match exactly what you see in the system, in the MIS or IWDS. So here's your definition column. This is searchable in the Excel version. So if you ever are wondering what service you just provided, or if you're talking with someone, you can do a search and find and use a keyword, and it will pop up that label and the definition for you. Mark mentioned the performance measures associated with each youth element. So here is the column that indicates the service measure. So basically what this is telling you is if they have this service, they're enrolled, and here are the measures that they will impact. This example is a service that's education for youth. So as you see here, it denotes the training measures for youth credential and MSG, as long as all the other measures. So when in doubt, there's your reference for the performance measure for training and education for youth. Mark talked about the WEX policy, the 20%. This column gives you a yes or no. So if my youth had a tutoring study skills service, does that cost count towards my 20% work experience? No, that's not a work experience, but sometimes it's not as clear in the service name. So that's your guide for that. Is this a same-day service or not? No, same-day services don't apply to all the youth elements, especially not education or training, because they're left open. But it certainly is helpful if you need to know if that service is same day and going to extend participation. And then this column is probably one of the most, not the most important, but what we'll really get into today. So please use it as a reference. This yes or no, whenever you're in doubt with pre-enrollment, non-reported, non-participation trigger for youth, this is where you go to figure that out. And I'll explain that a bit more. Of course, this would trigger participation if you provided it as their first element. I want to go down quickly and show you. So yeah, this is the header. You'll know you're in the youth tab. I didn't show you that, but the tabs are down here. So we're just looking at youth today. So sorry that I'm scrolling on you, but I want to show you this section at the bottom because we're going to be talking about it. One more thing. You'll hear us talk about a red line version. Well, this session of technical assistance on the services matrix, the main focus is all of these updates that were made from Laura discovering policy and some revisions that we had to make clear. So we have a red line version. This is so everyone can see what the matrix was prior to April 2025 and what it is now. So that should be very helpful to figure out what's changing on you. And then this bottom section, this is where the non-enrollment services are listed. So just be aware there's several elements at the top. So go all the way to the bottom so you can reference the non-enrolling the pre-enrolling youth activities and other things like that. So those are at the bottom when I reference that. Anything in red is updated or removed. And any questions, please put them in the chat. If not, I will move on in the presentation. Okay, so the BSST, the Basic Skills Screening Tool, how does this fit in? Well, it's a main key. It's a major piece in figuring out and enrolling youth. So there's policy rules attached to how this is used. It needs to be used to determine basic skills deficiency for eligibility, priority services purposes. It must be given before any assessments, including the youth objective assessment. It's not given as a part of any career service for adults and dislocated workers, or even reported as an objective assessment for youth. And this is all in the policy. If any question is answered as no, the individual is considered basic skills deficient. So that's a rule of thumb. And then using this, please make all appropriate referrals. That's an important piece of the tool. And then career planners need to do this during the initial assessment for adults to determine what they need and then go from there. So just throwing that out there as a piece of this policy for enrolling youth. Yep, wrong PowerPoint. Okay, so I said that today we're going to focus on some new things you need to know about and start applying. One of those has to do with the 3 pre-enrollment activities for youth. So for some people who are newer to handling enrolling youth in IWDS, before you can provide your youth one of these elements, provide them all the benefits and services, there are 3 required activities that must be done and documented. And a switch up on this today is that youth career planning, case management, new label, youth career planning, it's not one of your pre-enrolling anymore. So take that out. We're moving that. That is going to be an active career planning, career service for youth that can trigger participation. And when you're doing it, you're serving them. We have an updated definition. So forget about that as a pre-enrollment anymore from now on in April 2025. What you do have to do and document is youth eligibility determination and intake. That is at the bottom of the matrix I just showed you with a new definition. The youth comprehensive and specialized assessment that you're used to doing as a pre-enrollment, that label is changed to match policy. So that will make it easier. And it's youth objective assessment, also found in the bottom pre-enrollment or non-enrolling for youth. And then of course, the development of an ISS, same rules, bottom of the matrix, because it's a pre-enrollment, it's required, it's very, very important, but it is not an active youth element. Okay, so youth eligibility determination intake, I just spoke about it a bit. This slide, I don't know if you print the PowerPoints or keep them as reference, it's a great reference slide to be checking things off as you do this. This is a brand new definition. So please reference this in the service matrix. and make sure that you're very familiar with this, because come Monday morning, when you're enrolling a youth, this is going to be what you're doing, and it's available for you to document. It needs to be documented, or you won't be able to provide them an element. Youth objective assessment, it's just a new label and a new definition here. So I won't read this, but this is where you're getting into their in-depth assessment and analysis and their diagnostic tests. It acts like a same-day service, even though they're not enrolled yet. And then, of course, case notes are required. Always please see the career planning and basic skills deficiency assessment requirement policies. So the policy drives all of this. This objective assessment is very important because this is like your first interaction where you're starting to build your relationship with this youth, and it's going to be key moving forward when we focus on that customer-centered feel and design of systems and how we serve everyone. Development and an individualized service strategy, most important thing to be updated and developed for youth. You're going on all that information, and there are rules about documenting this. So, it's an ongoing strategy throughout participation for you to reference and make sure they're meeting their goals. A lot of things are tied back to what you have in this ISS reporting, even their performance, all of these elements that you need to include in there. So this kind of drives the whole service delivery for your youth. And please see that updated definition at the bottom of the matrix. Okay, so just to recap, after certification, either in school or out of school, regardless of how they're certified, these pre-enrollment, that's the key word, they're activities, not services, and they provide a documentation mechanism to start entering case notes, and they're justifying and supporting your decisions for enrolling that youth and their eligibility. They're non-enrollment, they don't trigger participation, they're not one of the 14 elements. They don't get reported in our federal reports to Department of Labor. They don't trigger performance measures, and they will never align or be the date of exit. This is the application. So in our reporting system in IWDS, they trigger statuses for phases of enrolling youth. So as you all know, you'll see to the right of a youth's name on their record, it calls them an applicant. So that is, a youth is an applicant when they have those 3 pre-enrollment activities. So you'll have your new eligibility determination and intake, the objective assessment, and the ISS. Those aren't enrolling, they're still just an applicant. But once you do those, you're all set to provide them at least, their first youth element, the actual true service. And that is what triggers them to become a participant moving forward. They're being reported, they're in your measures, they're a youth customer. Okay.
Oh, I can take this.
Oh yeah, sorry, Laura.
That's okay.
Great.
Good morning, everyone. Youth enrollment activities. So something that you need to know is the timeline for the youth enrollment services and data entry. In the system, once you certify a youth, the 45-day enrollment clock begins. All 3 of the required pre-enrollment activities must be done and documented, as well as at least 1 enrolling youth program element. I know that a lot of times that gets confusing, but even though they're certified, even though they've had these pre-enrollment services, they're not actually a registrant or participant until they receive their first enrolling youth element. And that first element has to be logged after the 3 pre-enrollment activities have been done. If the above do not occur within that 45 days, the system locks the youth application. And it won't allow anyone to put anything in for that youth customer after that. Okay, next slide. If a youth application is locked past 45 days, what do you do? Well, if it's deemed appropriate to register the youth after the application has been locked, so it's been a couple of days, it got locked, you're able to come back in. You have the local system administrator remove the certification in the system, and the youth becomes an inquirant. Then you must recertify them and either update or put in a new application. And the rule of thumb is that if the application is just a couple days past that 45 days, then you just double check the information and make sure that the information on the application is correct. If it's really beyond those 45 days, then you really need to collect a new application, because we're looking at, especially those that include where they've been determined low income on an income calculation, and that may change within that time frame. So you definitely want to be looking that over and ensuring that that is the same on the original application, or update it if you need to. The youth career planning has an entirely new definition, and it will extend participation. DOL has brought to attention that this service is a service a lot like vocational exploration. This service is where you're having those conversations with the customer, providing that one-on-one career counseling. So you're talking to them about, okay, what are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? Providing them materials and suggestions and advice about making those occupation and career decisions. Career exploration is when they're actually going out and doing that deep dive. This is more of this assistance and the advice that you're giving them. And that's also described in the career planning policy. So make sure you look at that. Okay, group workforce research workshops, job clubs. This is typically not done in a one-on-one setting, and therefore it is moved to the bottom of the tab as a non-enrolling activity. It will not extend participation or reset the 90-day exit clock. And so it remains an IWDS for you to select it, but technically it is a self-service unless significant one-on-one action is happening during that time. And then it would fall under one of the other youth elements for you to record. So we have a poll. If I provide a WIOA youth applicant with a blank, will trigger their participation enrollment in the youth program. So pick one of the answers here.
And I've gone ahead and launched that poll now, so you can.
Thank you, Kristen.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and end it and share the results.
Let's see what we got here. All right. Looks like most everyone got it right. The answer is youth career planning. That is an actual service now. The objective assessment, the ISS, all of those others are non-enrolling services. So that is fantastic. Good job. And now I'm going to turn it back over to Paula.
Okay, so thank you, Laura. So when will these new rules apply? I kind of mentioned it. Friday, so tomorrow, no, today, April 11th, this evening, actually. So I don't know how many people work all weekend, but we will deploy these changes. So we will either say it will go live or there will be a system deployment today. So Monday morning, April 25th, is when you will no longer have youth career planning as an option as a pre-enrollment. It's going to be eligibility determination intake. The objective assessment label will be there. You won't see the comprehensive and specialized assessment. Youth career planning won't be one of the three. From now on, if you want to go ahead and enroll them with your first in-depth youth career planning advice type session, that will trigger their participation. Then we'll talk about the workforce research job clubs a little more, but those are those of you who do this type of activity frequently, we'll discuss how to handle this because we want you to track it, but if it's not one-on-one, then it's not going to make them a participant and they will need to be reviewed for exit. It won't extend the 90-day exit clock. And then starting on April 14th, you'll have the matrix, you'll have the guidance, and you'll be responsible for applying these rules. So how do I handle changes for go live? What's it going to look like? So I'll talk about real quick for 2023, this pre-enrollment concept was brand new. Right now, we all know it. We have our youth in the system. Just some of those pre-enrollment activities are being tweaked a bit. So all of your youth who you're currently serving who have the old pre-enrolling activities and at least one of their first youth elements, so they're your participants, no updates needed. So don't worry about that. Updates will be required because right now, when you had youth with the career planning and we had case management in the parentheses, that's not the definition. It's not case management. It's youth career planning. So it's a brand new code. You can't tell that behind the scenes. So you will need for all your youth to go ahead when it's provided and document the youth career planning code in the system. From then on, when it's done, you can add episodes. But from before Monday, it wouldn't have been there. So that is something that you really need to make sure you put in their file, and then add episodes as appropriate. So for current youth customers. So anyone who has a group workforce research job clubs, the rules on the service starting Monday, they're not going to keep extending their participation. What we've seen in some of these group research workforce job clubs, right now the definition is it's not one-on-one and we can't report something that's in a big group setting without staff involvement. If you look at case notes or when you put this in, you are actually providing a one-on-one to that youth. Maybe you had 5 of them with career planners and you were taking them, public transportation, taking them to different job sites, talking to them, answering questions. Now, that seems like it's in a group, but that's one-on-one significant information and benefits received by that youth. So check that out. What you do when that happens, you go to the matrix and say, okay, I did this. It could be vocational exploration. It could be prep to go to post-secondary, all of that. So make sure you give yourself the proper credit with the same youth element, just because we're changing up the rules. However, if you had documented group workforce research job clubs and it was legitimately just a huge group and they're watching a video on writing a resume or something, that no longer will extend their exit. So if that's all you were doing, you need to review them for exit because no one-on-one was provided. If you actually did more in-depth and gave them more benefits and youth elements, please look in the matrix and find some youth elements that you actually did do. We need to get credit and document that level of participation for your customers. Okay. So for a brand new youth on Monday morning, you will have to, again, sorry to be so repetitive here, but you'll provide the new combination of the 3 pre-enrollment activities. So if you want to jot this down, print out these slides for everyone, just so you remember, because it will be Monday. It's not going to be career planning anymore. It's eligibility determination intake. Look out for that youth objective assessment in the drop down. And then, as always, the ISS. Okay, so just a rundown briefly of what does this mean for everyone. There are expectations that everyone's going to learn these new rules. There's a learning curve, maybe. We need to start applying the youth enrollment requirements and reporting all of the youth elements when they happen. The more familiar you are with the matrix, and we're calling it version 2, 2025, the better off you'll be. We'll be able to figure out everything everyone's actually really doing with youth. We'll be able to better track youth for compliance, enrollment, follow up, and exit. You're going to be able to justify everything you do with them and reasons for not exiting or exiting them. So failure to document all elements is in theory, technically, truly not compliant with WIOA Title I-B. We need to know everything that's being done so eventually we can figure out the things that work the best.
All right, well, this is my slide. Okay, so staff must be familiar with the youth TEAGL, which is 2116. It explains the 14 youth elements and how all must be offered locally. We use that TEAGL as a guide to help develop this matrix as a tool for finding services under each of the program elements. And this matrix is going to allow us to be consistent across the state and ensure that services are being provided and documented properly. Additionally, this is also going to help us evaluate the program elements being provided locally. There are 14 youth elements. I'll go back to they're listed here. The only one that has a significant change is element 13, the labor market information element. We are going through these. Note that Workforce GPS has a youth connections community, and that community provides a wealth of information on youth program elements and things that others are doing across the country. So make sure that you utilize that as a resource for yourselves. We're going to go through these program elements and switch off between Paula and myself. So we're going to try to tag team these. So go ahead to the next slide. That should be a question. So does the department require local programs to use WIOA funds for each of the 14 program elements? And the answer is yes. A local program has to make all 14 program elements available to the youth in their area. But not all of those services have to be funded using WIOA funds. So local programs should leverage their partner resources to provide elements that they don't provide, and come to an agreement with those partners so that they're able to provide those and in a coordinated way with your WIOA youth program. Okay, next. Let's see, Paul. Actually, this says, oh yeah, Paula.
Okay, yes. Okay, I'm on the right side. Okay, so what are tutoring, first element, what are tutoring, study skills, training, instruction, and dropout prevention services? This is youth element 1. So as defined, these are services that you can provide to someone who's in school, so you make sure that they achieve all their educational goals. So this is an important element to provide, as well as it triggers the youth MSG and credential measure. Okay, youth element 2.
Okay.
Oh.
I was just saying, I think you're taking odd, I'm taking even. Youth element 2. This is a second program element, alternative secondary school services or dropout recovery. And note that the word recovery here And that's because this service is designed to help youth who have already dropped out of school to get back into school. And so just remember that youth have to be officially dropped or withdrawn from the school district. And also something to note is any participant that's co-enrolled in the Youth Build program is also considered out-of-school youth. You would enter this service if they register for like a third party high school equivalency program provided by Youth Build, like Penn Foster. So again, this one's for out of school youth.
Great example, Laura. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
What is paid and unpaid work experience? So this is a youth element, number 3. There are multiple different types of paid, unpaid work experience that fall under this, as you can see. So in the matrix, this is one youth element 3, but multiple definitions with certain rules attached. And as you will see, this counts towards the 20% WEX. Okay, so under this, we'll highlight a couple services. So WBL stands for work-based learning. So for a paid work experience, like an internship that's not limited to just summer, there are rules for reporting this, and it needs to be planned and structured in a learning experience that takes place in a workplace or work site for a limited period of time. And it must include both academic and occupational components. If they are in a work experience or internship that's part of their registered apprenticeship or pre-apprenticeship program you've already enrolled them in, don't record it separate. We'll just assume it's getting reported with the RAP. Employability skills. Okay, so this is job readiness training for youth. It's kind of the counterpart of the 1A, 1D service for who's familiar. So this is one I would urge everyone to go check out and look at and read this definition. I think it's happening a lot, but getting reported under a career planning service. So it's employability skills. It's all types of skills you're providing them that help them stay employed. All of those standards and assessments. So we're talking about the soft skills, they're non-technical, and they should be preparing youth for a work experience to report this. So please note that in the definition. For OJT, private or public for youth, it's youth on the job training, and they're not considered training. So if they only, what we mean by that is the 2 OJTs for youth, if it's the only element they have like that, if they're not in an occupational skills training or RAP, they won't be in your measurable skills gain. They don't trigger the credential or MSG. If an in-school youth is participating in an OJT, since they're in school, they will be in your youth measurable skills gain. We've completely recognized milestones from their OJTs that you can document as an MSG. Just because this wasn't the trigger, we absolutely want to document those progress reports and all the notes and things from employers.
Okay, the 4th element is occupational skills training. When appropriate, and training services have been deemed needed, they must be provided either through an ITA or through a training contract. Please note that 10-19-22 change 1 is something that you should become familiar with. It will answer quite a few of your questions on how to properly record services, the timeline for services, when a training date is over, and so on and so forth. So it is an excellent resource that I encourage you to definitely look at and take it in. The youth program must have this on their career plan, their ISS. ETPL requirements do apply to ITA funded programs. Local boards do establish ITA policies, and those may limit WIOA funding or the duration of a training program. So make sure that you're very familiar with your local's policies so that you know what your what limitations are for your youth. As stated in the career planning policy, local boards must ensure that career planners assist the participant in making an informed choice of the available training providers and program options available. This is done by first presenting and reviewing the state ETPL, and then talking about perhaps maybe any limitations the local may have, but the state ETPL must be presented in its entirety to the participant. And because those participants' choices of training programs cannot be limited to just those that are on a local ETPL if one is established. Service Highlight is a registered apprenticeship program. Youth enrolled in a registered apprenticeship program will be counted in all the performance measures. Again, the RAP must be on the ETPL. The program consists of both OJT and skills upgrading. So even though the program has those two different components, it is not recorded separately in the system. It is recorded as a single RAP program. So it contains all of the components. And enrollment in a RAP should remain open until completion of all the required components, which includes obtaining the certificate.
Youth element 5. What is education offered concurrently with workforce preparation services? So this is an integrated model, and I would suggest looking at the definition, and it combines adult education and literacy activities like basic academic skills. So those are included as a part of alternative secondary school and dropout recovery services. So youth element 2. And it must be included concurrently and contextually with workforce prep activities. So you're looking at youth element 3, and then a training program is required, like occupational skills training element 4. And the focus is towards a specific occupation or occupational cluster. And it's also referred to as an IET or ICAPS. All three of those elements have to be, all three of those elements have to be provided to equate this service. So to be able to report it and take credit for doing this, it has to meet the definition. And it is a trigger for performance measures based on that occupational skills training element. Okay, we have a question. And can I provide each of the elements that make up an IET, element number 5, completely separately, and then report it here under this service? And the answer is no. This isn't a poll. It's just an example. So no, by definition, each of those 3 components have to be provided concurrently and contextually. The ICAPS career pathway programs are developed to address this requirement. So I would refer to career pathways, and if Laura, you have anything to add to that.
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
All right, so the 6th program element is leadership development opportunity services. I'm not quite sure that this gets used quite as often as it should, but it is an element that I think should be really looked at. It's focused on encouraging responsibility, confidence, employability, self-determination, and other positive social and civic behaviors. Allowable activities under this element include exposure to post-secondary educational possibilities, community and service learning projects, peer-centered activities like peer mentoring and tutoring, and organizational and teamwork training, including team leadership training. Next slide is going to be a poll. Which of the following do you think are positive social and civic behaviors? And if Kirsten could bring up the poll, thank you.
going to go ahead and end that and share the results.
Fantastic. Look at that. That's amazing. Yes, every single one of these are positive social and civic behaviors that could be included under this element. Great job.
Okay, what are supportive services? This is Youth Program Element 7. Note that supportive service is actually a youth element. So there's a specific definition you'll find in the matrix, and it has its own tab. So supportive services enable individuals to participate in WIOA activities, so without which they wouldn't be able to participate, things like transportation and uniforms and things like that. They need to be identified and in the ISS to address all their needs or issues during the intake and assessment process. So going back to all of those pre-enrollments, you probably need to figure out what's going on here so you can make sure they're available. Any issue that could be hindering their ability to participate in any training or education or employment goal to meet employment goals. And the ISS, again, must include a plan for what will be needed and then how they'll be provided. And they need to be included in the Youth Supportive Services Policy. This is a long list from the definition that are available. So just even something like a linkage to a community service, transportation, childcare, housing, educational tests, certain accommodations, legal aid services, that's specific. So please always refer to the matrix, referrals to healthcare, uniforms, books, fees to go along with their occupational training. And then there can be related fees for their tests and exams paid for if allowed in local policy. So for example, when can they be provided for a youth? So it's during participation and follow-up. That's where youth supportive services rules differ a little bit. And there aren't specific requirements for when. They need to be based on their needs that are identified and always in the ISS, so you can justify these. And they are one of the 5 youth elements that can be provided during follow-up. But if they're provided during follow-up, they don't extend exit. So there's your caveat. It's a youth element, and it can be provided after exit, but it's never going to extend exit. So the rules in this system, if you keep adding supportive services, they're not going to reset your 90-day exit clock. So again, LWIBs must develop a supportive services policy that ensures they can or cannot be used as a resource in the local area. All local staff, and especially career planners, must have copies of local policies and understand how to apply the local board's policy. So that's important, as Mark talked about integrity for monitoring and things like that. We just want everyone to be all on the same page with what's allowed. Oh, sorry. This PowerPoint's going crazy on me. This has been a repeat finding across multiple local areas during federal monitoring. So just moving forward with this new matrix, it should be something we aim to do better. Question: can WIOA-funded support services occur during the follow-up period? Again, yes. All allowable supportive services based on your local policy can be provided during their post-exit follow-up. Again, our current system will not allow a supportive service record to be added when a follow-up service is open. So what we do there is when you know you're providing youth the required follow-up, you can't add the actual service record, but please make sure they're documented, very detailed in standard case notes.
The next element is adult mentoring. This program element involves a formal relationship between a youth and an adult mentor. And this includes structured activities where the mentor offers guidance, support, and encouragement to help develop the youth's confidence and character. This is a rarely, this element is something that really needs to be looked at in the field. I don't know that it gets used quite often. The mentoring service must last for at least 12 months and may occur both during participation and as a follow-up service after program exit. Local boards are responsible for having appropriate process in place to adequately screen and select mentors. And DOL strongly prefers that career planners not serve as mentors. They may in areas where adult mentors are scarce, but they really don't like the career planners acting as an adult mentor. Youth are to be matched with an individual who provides, go to the next slide. Youth are to be matched with an individual who provides face-to-face interaction. This includes being matched with an employee of a company. It's a formal relationship again, and it has structured activities. You're not just setting someone up with someone. They have to have structured activities, whether they offer guidance, support, or encouragement. So we have a knowledge check, another poll. Adult mentoring should be reported when a staff member of our service provider mentors youth during an entire summer while they take one class and participate in an internship. Should you add an additional episode to the IEP? True or false?
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and end it and share the results.
Quite tight. If you could go to the next slide, we'll have the answer. The answer is false. The mentoring has to last at least for 12 months, so the entire summer is not going to hit the requirements. And the person that was doing the mentoring was a staff member of a provider, and so that may not necessarily be the best outcome. And additionally, you would not add a service episode to the IEP. You would enter the adult mentoring service if it actually met the requirements for the service. Yes, and I know we don't have an IEP for youth, it's ISS. I think we probably copied over some of the stuff from another one, but we're going to get used to calling it career plan. And that way it's either an IEP for an adult or dislocated worker or an ISS for youth. And so we're just, in the new system, we're going to call it a career plan. So just put that in your head. Every time you see IEP, ISS, that's what we're meaning. So
Thanks,
thanks,
Noah.
David.
Okay, youth program element 9. What are follow-up services? And youth follow-up services are provided after exit to help ensure the youth is successful in employment or post-secondary education and training. So continuing on with all the work you've done when they're in the transition to follow-up. So they might include other program elements for youth. So there's a follow-up tab in the matrix. So they don't look like the same things that are allowed for 1A, 1D. To put it bluntly, you can do a lot more in follow-up sometimes with youth than you can 1A, 1D. They may begin immediately following the last expected date of service for the youth program and any other co-enrolled program when no future services are scheduled. So they do not extend exit or trigger re-enrollment in the youth program. Even though some of the youth follow-up services look like elements, same definition, when you have determined that they're in the follow-up phase, they're not extending their participation. Youth, there are specific follow-up rules for youth, and they must be enrolled in follow-up services for a minimum of 12 months with a couple of exceptions if you cannot locate or they explicitly decline these services. The 12-month follow-up requirement is completed for 1 year from the date of exit. So that's when it starts the follow-up clock. They can last longer than 12 months for youth. That's in the follow-up policy. And they could include regular contact with the youth's employer, including assistance and addressing work-related problems that arise. So speaking with the youth's employer and them working with you to help them is a form of follow-up because it's going to result in a benefit, ultimately in a benefit for the youth. Question: how can follow-up services for youth participants include other program elements? Can they, not how can they? Well, yes, they can. They can include supportive services, even adult mentoring, that element. These are examples. All the financial literacy education type activities, the LMI and employment information activities, and anything that would help them prepare and transition to post-secondary education. So as we covered, these are youth elements that can be done in follow-up.
Youth program element 10 is comprehensive guidance and counseling services. And a lot of people get this confused. It's not necessarily about providing one-on-one guidance to youth. It is specifically about providing counseling on drug and alcohol abuse, mental health counseling, and referral to partner programs. Comprehensive guidance and counseling provides individual counseling for those things that I mentioned. And so programs should not record this youth element in place of the youth career planning activities. So make sure that we understand that that's the difference between youth career planning and comprehensive guidances. When referring participants to necessary counseling, local youth programs must coordinate with the organization it refers youth to ensure continuity of service. And when qualified resources exist within the local program or its providers, it is allowable to provide counseling service directly to participants rather than to refer them to partner programs. So we have a knowledge check. One of our career planners has experience with addiction and would like to speak to our participants as an adult mentor. Can they do that? And the answer is no. Go back, Sarah.
Sorry.
That's okay. Informal guidance and counseling from well-meaning but inexpert individuals is not allowed. It has to be with an expert or someone that's certified within the drug mental health field. So.
Okay, youth program element 11. What are financial literacy education services? So services included in the definition of this element are anything that's going to help youth acquire knowledge, skills, and confidence to make informed and effective decisions with their financial resources, bank accounts, checkbooks, online, being safe with their passwords of their bank accounts and things. And this goal is to make sure that they attain financial health while they're participating and working with you, and stability. So this should be high quality. High quality information about these things, age appropriate and relevant, and where possible, customize services, figure out what they need, where they're at with financial literacy, and then provide these. I'll note quickly that I have seen some of these going on, great things happening in case notes, and that these were done with youth, but I think they're bundled up under the career planning. So please, everyone, take a look at these elements like this and make sure you're taking credit for the element on top of the career planning, on top of everything you're providing them. Okay, so this is just a reference slide. What activities are considered financial literacy education? So it's all of these things. This is a long list: budgeting, bank accounts, credit reports, figure out your credit score, what it means, why it's so important, financial products, maybe credit cards, identity theft, PII, how important that is to protect it, especially literacy needs of non-English speakers, where it can become even trickier. Address financial needs for youth with disabilities, customize those, and then make sure it's age appropriate. I mean, a 16-year-old might be at a different area and what they need with bank accounts or credit cards with a 20-year-old, and then any other approach that you can make sure they're really stable when it comes to financial literacy. So if you do one of those things, you can search the matrix and it will take you right to this service. So as you can see, this is probably going on a lot. I see you, Laura. Sorry.
I'm so sorry, I was talking on mute. Slide, our program element 12 is youth entrepreneurial skills training. And this is providing the basics of starting and operating a small business. Such training must develop skills that are associated with apprenticeship or entrepreneurship, sorry. And they may include the ability to take initiative, creatively seeking out and identifying business opportunities, developing budgets and forecasting needs, creating business plans, understanding various options for acquiring capital and trade-offs, and communicate effectively and market oneself and one's ideas. And so what activities are considered in this element? Entrepreneurship education programs, which guide the youth through the development of a business plan for startup and operation. Enterprise development programs could be used, and experiential programs could also be counted. Go ahead, Paula.
Sorry, my slide is touchy.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so youth program element 13 of 14. What are services that provide labor market and employment information, otherwise known as LMI? There's a whole bunch of these. So they're broken up in the matrix under 4 different service labels, and they're specific. So it's any information you're giving them about in-demand industry sectors, the DODL, local occupations available, smart decisions for that, career awareness, counseling, and exploration services. So figuring out what they want to do, looking at all those resources online. So it's labor market information. Your new enrolling active youth career planning element falls under LMI. What does it mean to you? The definition is what it is. That's just where you find it in the matrix, and that's where we report it to DOL. This also includes referred to employment placement assistance. It's an important one, as well as vocational exploration. Examples include, but are not limited to, all of these things. For the sake of time, I just want to point out this is going on a lot for all of our youth, all 4 of those things. And I think that it's getting picked up in case notes or career planning. So we just need to make sure we go check these out and try to add a service every time. Once you get the service in, you'll just add episodes every time you do these things. So it's giving them access. LMI, interviewing skills. Maybe they just ask about it. Maybe you're just offering and explaining all the youth elements that are available to them. Maybe just the opportunity about a work experience and what that is. That you get credit for that. That falls under an element. And then even just going into how good a post-secondary education or credential could be for them and their career, that counts under here. That's an actual element and benefit you're providing. Okay, so we're going to highlight vocational exploration, and please check this out in the matrix on your own. So this is career awareness, counseling, and exploration. There are keywords that fall under here that make it a vocational exploration. And it can be interviewing skills. They're actually exploring careers, but they need help because there's so many out there and so much stuff to compare to make the best decisions for their life. Last element, Laura.
Okay. Program element 14 is post-secondary prep and transition activities. And services under this element prepare in-school and out-of-school youth for advancement into post-secondary education and training after a high school diploma or its recognized equivalent has been achieved. These services include exploring post-secondary education options, including technical training schools, community colleges, four-year universities, and registered apprenticeship programs. So a practical list of services that can be used, or a list of services can include assisting a youth to prepare for an SAT or an ACT testing, assisting with college admission applications, searching and applying for scholarships, filling out the proper financial aid forms, and connecting youth to post-secondary education programs. And so this is, just like I said, it's preparation for transition into post-secondary. So any of the activities that would fall under that title, that definition would be recorded here. So we have a knowledge check. So does utilizing the scholarship finder on the Career One Stop website count as an activity that can be recorded under this youth element? And the answer is yes. The use of websites and apps to assist in finding those scholarships meets the definition. There's some others listed here that if you're not familiar with them and they're still ongoing, you could look those up and see if that could assist you. And local school districts often have, college rooms in their high schools that could be a source of local scholarships that may be available that you can find out about. Oh, I think this is you. Paula, you're on mute. Well, I can go ahead and speak to it.
I'm sorry, I
that's
lost
okay.
my box.
That's
So
okay.
we're moving on to the additional non-enrolling activities we talked about. I showed you them. They're categorized down at the bottom of the matrix. So the first one is the future scheduled service. And Laura, was this your slide? You can take it if you want to.
Oh, it was yours.
I'm sorry. Okay, so a future scheduled service. Note the red. We used to call it a plan gap holding. That was a no-no. That's not allowed. You can't just hold someone in the program with a gap. So it's based, the question of whether or not you're allowed to do this, is there something that they're planning in the future, right? And why can't they do it now? And that's important. So there are rules. And if there's a delay of greater than 90 days, they don't need to be considered exited if the delay is due to one of these things: extenuating circumstances, maybe a delay before the beginning of the training. That's not their fault if the training they're going to is postponed. If they have a health or medical condition, or providing for a family member with a health or medical condition, and that won't allow them to attend. If their training requires a lot of physical activity and they broke their leg, well, that legitimizes letting them wait and stay in the program. Don't exit them. That's not their fault. A temporary move from the area that would prevent them from participating, including military. Okay, so this can't last more than 180 consecutive calendar days. So if it is, they need to figure something out, and we shouldn't we shouldn't schedule a future service for them if it's going to be that long. All delays must be documented and detailed in the system, include the reason, and very importantly, the anticipated return date. Right now, we don't have a box where you can enter a date or put a service in with a future date to kind of track this. So it's really important that it gets put in their case notes. And then DOL said, this is an extenuated circumstance. It doesn't get reported to them, but if they were to look, it shouldn't be happening we shouldn't have a bunch of these in everyone's records. It's a tracking mechanism that's used rarely. Laura, you're muted, I think. Where's this my slide? Okay, so the additional non-enrolling activity that we're going to talk about today is, this isn't a new code. This isn't a new activity. It's called training paid by non-WIOA Title I funds. So this is a non-enrolling activity. And the reason it's available for you to add into the system is because we want to know when a WIOA participant is in a training or education that's not funded by WIOA adult or youth funds. But they're in your program, so they're receiving other program elements that we talked about, maybe a bunch of leadership development, supportive services. So this label is going to justify the need for those wraparound WIOA services you're giving them. And it needs to support the participants' employment goals and the individual service strategy. So if everything you're doing for them, but you're not funding their occupational skills training, go ahead and add or they're in a partner funded program, Job Corps, all of those, go ahead and add this so you can keep that in mind and track it. Okay, are there relationships to performance? Well, this isn't an activity that would ever trigger their participation or extend exit at this time. So this documentation should be entered. So use this label for out-of-school youth who, during participation in Title I youth, are in secondary education, in post-secondary education leading to a recognized credential, co-enrolled in Title II education at or above the 9th grade level, and then, as Laura mentioned, co-enrolled in Youth Build or Job Corps programs. Again, this activity alone will not trigger the training performance measures for credential or MSG. When you know a youth is in a training outside of a non-WIOA funded training element, you can update their status on a screen that's called the Education Status in Program Update with a yes, saying they're in education or training. There's a concurrent program screen in IWDS that you can indicate a yes for Job Corps or Youth Build. The youth elements, keep in mind, youth elements, occupational skills training, education offered concurrently with workforce prep, that ICAPS, or RAP, those services alone, those are reported as WIOA funded training, right? So they are going to trigger those measures. Okay, and we have a question. It's not a poll, but as an example, so if I'm serving a WIOA Title I youth and they're paying for their own post-secondary training that does lead to a credential, or they're in a training funded by a partner program, non-WIOA or Title I, but we're providing them adult mentoring, leadership services, can I provide them with a supportive service? Because we're not paying for their training. So yes, the training service should be justified and tied to supporting success in one of those other elements being provided by Title I. And in this case, you should definitely add the training paid by non-WIOA Title I funds activity so there's a clear record to indicate that another program or source is providing the training. We also need to make sure that this is added in the ISS and in case notes and the concurrent program screen. Now, when the participant is actually co-enrolled in another partner program, this should be coordinated across the programs, ISS, and their exit. And then update that education status in program update screen. This is another poll on youth program elements. Which youth element should I report when I assist a youth with school and aim to keep them in school and achieving all their educational goals? So examples include identifying areas of their academic concern, their problems, learning strategies, tutoring, and overcoming any obstacles in school. The goal is a high school diploma. Which element should you report for this?
For the sake of time, we're just going to go ahead and end this and share the results.
Okay.
Got it.
Okay, so that is youth element 1, tutoring, study skills instruction, dropout prevention. This keeps us in school youth in school, and they will be in all of your performance measures, MSG and YCAR. With that wraps it up. I'll turn it over
Yep,
to Mark.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Laura and Paula, for all that great information. We are running a little short on time. We've responded to many of your questions in the chat pod and in the Q&A section. I've been documenting all of these. What we will do, we'll take each of these up and add them to our next Tuesday. As I mentioned, the second half of that webinar, after we cover supportive services and follow-up services for adults and dislocated workers, we will have an open question session. So we'll address many or all of those in that session. We will be adding this to the FAQ on Illinois WorkNet. If you can go to the next one, Paula. So here you see we've got a WIOA Title I-B Services Matrix FAQ. The link is in your PowerPoint that was shared earlier and will be uploaded with the recording in 3 to 5 days. So what we ask for you to do is if you have any additional questions that you didn't get put in today, please submit those in the FAQ. That way, any of us who have access to that email will be able to go in and start preparing for next Tuesday's webinar by adding slides to address each of those questions. And so with that next one, Paula. This is our timeline. You've participated hopefully in the first 3 sessions now, and that 4th session is important to get some final information, final clarification. At that point, again, reminder, on Monday, this will all go live. You'll have the updated services matrix attached to policy. You'll have a day or so to look at that, submit any final questions. If you don't have time to submit a question in the FAQ link, we will open up the microphones and allow you to ask questions directly in that session on Tuesday. Again, that's at 10 o'clock, similar to these for that session. So apologize for not answering all of the questions today, but we appreciate you joining us for the recording of all of these sessions. You can get the link there on the right-hand side. It'll be posted both in the Illinois WorkNet platform as well as Kirsten and the ISU platform on Illinois State University's professional development workforce webinars. We'll upload the PowerPoint with the recording so you'll have access to both of those documents. Again, we appreciate you. The last slide here is just a reminder of some of the references that we use when we develop these PowerPoints, when we develop the material to be presented. They include the WIOA Act, they include several of the TEGLs, and we've given you the specific e-policy references in chat. Specifically, this matrix is attached to 4.2 career planning. So go to e-policy and you can access the current one today, and by Monday you'll be able to access the newest version of this. And I mentioned in the chat, and we've mentioned before, there'll be 2 versions there. One with all the red new text and strike through old text being replaced. And there'll be a clean version so that you can see it without all of that formatting of the fonts in there. If you have any other questions, we do ask again for specific questions on the services matrix. Use the FAQ at this time, rather than direct them to Paula, Laura, Jim, or myself. But if you have any other questions, continue to reach out to all of us, and we'll be happy to address those if it's appropriate in next week's webinar or directly back to you. Candace, last comment. If you're registered for this session, you're registered for hopefully you're registered for Tuesday. You would have selected that in the registration. But Kirsten, can you put that registration link back in case she's not, or if you can let her know if she's registered and already has that? It should be the same link, right, Kirsten?
Yeah, it should be the same link. I can.
So Candace, if you mistakenly didn't check the session on Tuesday when you went through registration, you can come back to this same calendar hold and use the link and get into our
Oh,
session
I'm sorry.
on Tuesday.
I'm
Nope.
sorry. Yeah, no, yeah, you're right. It should be yes.
Okay.
Sorry.
I thought Mondays would or the first session a week ago would have been the only one different because we use meeting instead of webinar platform. All right, everyone, we appreciate you joining us again today and look forward to having you all join us next Tuesday where we can round out all of the services matrix changes and answer the rest of your questions. Have a great weekend.